over the place. That's okay. That happens. Hi. Thank you very, very much for accepting my invite. I just feel during this time, Dr. Nahid, there are a lot of people who are feeling as if they're sitting in a cage. That's how my clients call up and say that their freedom has been taken away. To see people who are familiar, to touch them, to hold them, has become a problem. It's as if it's not a human being walking towards you, it's a corona virus walking towards you. And the same people that you would otherwise sit down and say, oh, you know, this person is so and so. Today, like you keep that 1 meter of a distance and probably even more. And faces are hidden behind actual masks, not just the masks that we used to wear otherwise. And things have become extremely difficult. This is the time when we need to really understand what life is all about. And who better can explain that than me, who's been into a lot of relationship counseling. So I would just say I met Dr. Nahid a few months back, actually, not even months, just a couple of months back, probably. Yeah. And I liked what I saw. There was a warm person sitting behind the desk who wasn't looking at me as, you know, just my brain, who was looking at me and talking to me as a whole individual. That really appealed to me. A doctor without a heart is a very incomplete doctor. So thank you very much. I'm not giving your professional qualifications. You can give that yourself and you can start with the talk. Thank you again for accepting my
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anu. That was a very beautiful introduction. I have to live up to it. So yes, I am a doctor by profession. I've done my MBBS and then my MD in psychiatry. And so I've been, throughout my life, I've been a very logical, scientific person. You know, you have to tell me facts for me to believe something. And when we treated patients, it was all about giving medications. That was a huge part of my training till the age of 27. Everything was science, logic, medicine.
Your voice is trailing, doctor.
And that's how I went about. But since I chose psychiatry as my, you can hear now?
Yes, just go a little slow. And
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been a medical doctor, or I still am a medical doctor, and all my profession, all my life, I've been talking logic and facts and seeing patients and prescribing medications. And I always felt that there was just something missing, you know, with my patients when I tell them the logical thing to do, the most obvious way to behave, and they understand it, but they're not able to put it into practice. I see a lot of people who come to me that I have been a counselor to other people. And yet, when I am into trouble, I don't know what to do. To a lot of people. So, here's when I understood that logically, or at a later date, people are able to look back and understand what they should have done. But in that moment, it becomes very difficult to take a pause, choose your reactions, or do things that you really want to do. So I had this initial brush with meditation when I had been recently to Sikkim. And in one of the monasteries, I tried meditating there. So I had all these ideas about meditation that, you know, so my, can you hear me clearly?
Abhay Kumar, please mute yourself. All of you, please mute yourself. Thank you so much. Yes, I can hear you clearly, doctor.
Yeah. So I had all these ideas about meditation, being a very staunch science student, that you know, you have to sit quietly, it's very boring, it will show effect after a long time. And most importantly, I thought that it's a way of escaping problems. Like, if I have a problem, I go and meditate. I mean, that's such a stupid thing to do. So I lived with that belief until I read about mindfulness, and then I got trained in mindfulness. I got trained from Dave Potter, who is a student of John Kabat-Zinn. 8 weeks training I did there, and then 3 months with Dr. Shama Shalidinia. So now I'm a mindfulness teacher, and I found it useful in two ways. One, my personal life, and
Dr. Dave, your voice is very, very low. Do
okay,
you
one
have a
second.
headphone that you can plug into your computer just for better
I
recording? And
Yeah, please give me a minute. Just give me a minute.
no problem. Take your time. Thank you, Dr. Kwesi, for being there, and thank you everybody else for being there.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah, is it better now?
yes, very much. But we can't
Okay, fine.
see you.
Second. Yeah, now?
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. I really appreciate.
Okay. So I was saying that I started studying mindfulness and I got trained in mindfulness, and it has helped me in two ways, with my practice and also with my patients. So as a personal story, is that I've always struggled with weight, and I always had this. I wouldn't eat because there was a lot of emotional eating. So I like to eat food. I like to eat sweet food, and I had tried every diet under the sun, and I was still not able to reach the weight that I wanted to. That is something that was a big problem. And the other thing is, with my patients, I realized that to help them choose responses. Like each one of us know that there are different ways in which I could react in a particular situation. I could have done that. I should have done that. I know that would have been the right thing to do. I didn't mean to say as much. When you hear these things from people, you really want to give them something which can help them choose their responses better. And that's where mindfulness helped me. Usually, before I start talking about mindfulness per se, we always start with a grounding meditation. So, if everyone's okay, I would like to guide you through a 3-minute meditation exercise.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, sit comfortably wherever you are, absolutely comfortable. And if you're holding your phone, please put it down and just close your eyes. Close your eyes. Continue your normal pace of breathing. Feel the air enter through your nose into your lungs. Notice how your body moves with every breath, how your chest moves, how your belly moves. Imagine your entire body to be hollow, and the breath fills up your entire body as it enters. Imagine a light at the tip of your toes. Be aware of all the sensations there are in your toes right now. The things it is touching, the temperature, the pressure, tingling if any. Imagine the light pass through your sole into your heel, up to your ankle. Be aware of every sensation in your foot right now. As you move up into your calves, be aware of the muscles, the tendons, the bones, your knee joint, the entire circumference of it. The light passes into your thighs, into your hip. Be aware of the pressure sensation on your hip as you sit, the clothes that touch it, the temperature. The light passing through your lower back, your abdomen. Notice how your belly moves with every breath. The light passes into your shoulder, your chest. It illuminates your entire arm, forearm, right up to your fingers. Be aware of every sensation in your hands right now. Your hands, your wrist, your palm, the elbow, up to your shoulder. The light passes through your neck, onto your face. Notice the expression on your face right now. The sensation of the temperature in the room. Your hair, your chin, cheeks, nose, eyes, eyebrows, forehead, your entire scalp and your ear. Be aware of every sensation in your body right now. If you get distracted, it's okay. Just invite your mind back to your body. Be aware of what thoughts you're having. As you breathe in and out, your air fills up every part of your body and it is whole and complete the way it is. There's nothing less, nothing more. Your body in this moment is whole. Rub your palms together. Place your palms on your face and slowly open your eyes. Yeah, everyone's with me?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone would like to share how this experience was? You can either chat or speak
Unmute
or
yourself,
whatever.
Aarti. Go ahead, unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah.
So in between, my thought wandered, and I think at that time when you said if it goes, just be aware what it is and everything. And towards the end, it came to a process when you told us to open your eyes. I didn't want to open my eyes. I just wanted to be in that place of peace, you know. So it was very nice. Thank you so much.
Fine. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Aarti.
I didn't want to open my eyes either. I was in a very peaceful place.
Okay. Good. Good to know.
Eyes are
Anyone else wants to say something?
Please unmute yourself and speak if you want to. Okay, Nutan, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, fine. So when we talk about mindfulness, it's very important to understand the first. Yes, please.
Yeah, Sanahid, I joined quite late, but then whatever your instructions were going of yours, I felt your words were like light, you know, and they were really creating that magic of whatever you were saying as if it's really happening. So thank you so much for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Roop is it, right?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Roop.
Thank you.
What we aim to achieve with this exercise, I will explain in due course. And we're going to have a few more exercises, not meditation per se, but a little different. So we'll come to that. The first thing that I want to talk about is automatic pilot. So, what is the first thing each of us do when we get up in the morning? Most of us reach out for our phone to see what is happening. What do I do when I'm eating my breakfast? I'm either reading the news, replying to a WhatsApp, thinking about what I'm going to do next, thinking about what is in the microwave, what is in the fridge, what I need to throw out, what I need to keep, and how I'm going to reply to somebody. So there is so many tasks that I'm doing at one time at all given points of time. We all live with a prejudice. Before this session, when you read the topic, you had a prejudice in your head. When the session started, you have a prejudice. It's always a preconceived idea about how it's going to be. So either we're living on an automatic pilot or we pre-decided so many things without experiencing it in the first hand. So many times when I eat a meal, each of us, the first bite, I'm curious to know how it tastes. After that, the second, third, fourth bite, I barely realize it and I look at my plate and it's already empty. And all throughout, I have been thinking of something else, watching TV, talking to somebody, and busy in one activity or the other. Also, there's this one example which always comes to my mind when I talk about automatic pilot. Is I had once gone to the gas filling station, the petrol pump we call here, and my car is a petrol car, and the guy over there accidentally filled it with diesel. I lost it so much. I was so angry and I was screaming my head off at everybody around there for being negligent and I think the guy probably lost his job after that because the manager was so upset. And in that moment, I didn't realize any of the things that were happening. But later, now, or even later that day, when I think back about it, I know for sure he didn't do it on purpose. It was a genuine mistake on a normal circumstance, or I wouldn't tell any of my patients to react the way I did. In fact, I said more than I wanted to. So, despite knowing everything, despite understanding how my mind works, I am still losing it so much. So, there is something that I need to understand about every moment that happens in my life. A lot of times between couples or with our children or with our parents, we say things we don't intend to because we're on that automatic pilot. And there is so much happening. If an event happens in my life today, I'm not only angry at this event, but I'm also angry at the fact that this always happens to me or he always does this. Now this happens to me on purpose. The day I forget at the umbrella, it is going to rain. I lived with so many preconceived ideas that I'm not even aware of it. This is automatic pilot. And mindfulness helps you understand and break this down so that you can be more present and more aware of things that happen. Now, to explain this even further, I'll give you a simple example. Suppose I'm walking outside my house and I see my neighbor. I wave out to them, I say hello, and they just walk past me without saying anything as if they didn't see me. Now, I'm most probably angry. I'm upset. I think why are they doing this on purpose? Or did I do something to upset them? And I go back with a foul mood, thinking about it the whole time. Now, my day is spoiled. My thought processes are into the entire cycle and ruminations over what I could have done wrong or what I did or what I should do. Should I approach her? Should I ask her? Should I let it go? And it goes on and on and on. Now I can look at it in two ways. Number one is she is upset with me is one perception. There could be many others. There could be a fact that she was really lost in her own thoughts, or she mistook me for somebody else, or she was on a phone and I did not see her Bluetooth or whatever, or I mistook her to be my neighbor. It could have been someone else. There could be so many reasons why this happened. But in that moment, I think of only one option, and that is a negative idea that goes on in my head. The second thing is, in that moment, there are certain body sensations that I have. I have slight tenseness of muscles. I feel slight anxiety. I feel embarrassed. I feel flushed. I feel angry. I feel irritated. Thoughts, body sensations, and negativity fill me. And after that, the rest of the day, I go on without realizing that because of these negative thoughts going on in my head, I have a slight shortness of breath. I have a heaviness in my chest, and I'm overall irritated. So the next person who pisses me off is going to get it with minimum or no fault of theirs. So we live our lives with such prejudices without thinking of other options. Maybe when I calm down, when I sit by myself or I talk to a friend, they might tell me, oh, it could have been something else. But I wasted so much of my time. I wasted pure energy thinking about this and reacting the way I did. And then if I think about, oh, I should I approach her, then I'll have another list of negative thoughts on what will happen if I approach her and doesn't go well. Other than this, if suppose my receptionist doesn't come on time, okay, and the patients have to wait in the waiting area because there's no one to look after them, so it's going to make me angry, and I'm going to think to myself, she's negligent, she is doing this always, I should cut her salary, or I have to be very stern with her, she's taking me for granted. These are the normal things that would come to our mind, and that will bring about anger, that will bring about frustration. And then I will approach and address this in a way that she will, the only message she will walk out of there thinking, Madam is angry, without understanding that why it has upset me that much. Simple. If she walks in and I tell her any of these things, that you're being negligent and you're not paying attention and you are not taking this job seriously, she'll give me a list of reasons why she got late that day, which I'm not interested in. My only purpose is to make her realize how embarrassing it is when you don't turn up, and please come on time tomorrow, which I am not achieving by reacting the way I am. And I'm not able to do this because I'm a slave to my thought and emotions. I get so lost in the process that I'm not able to react the way I logically know is the right way. So I could, all of us have normal IQ. We know what we should be doing. That's why we're so good at giving other people advice. But when it comes to yourself, it goes on an automatic pilot and we're not able to behave. Then again, we believe that anger is a negative emotion, jealousy is a negative emotion, embarrassment is a negative emotion. We don't think so. Happiness, sadness, anger, jealousy, embarrassment, guilt, normal emotions. We all have them. Each and every one of us goes through these emotions in different frequencies and intensity. So if you get one such emotion, you don't have to push it or shun it away, but accept it the way it is. In fact, we believe that there is a healthy and unhealthy side to every emotion, even jealousy. So if I'm jealous of something you have, I could do two things about it. Either I work towards taking it away from you or work towards getting it. Or if I'm tensed about an exam or an interview I have in the coming days, I could either work hard because I haven't done so far, or else I could just let it go because what's the point? It's already too late. So every emotion that we have, if I push it, I'm actually giving it that much more attention. In simple words, if a 3-year-old abuses, a 3-year-old uses a swear word, there are two ways I can handle it. One, I tell the kid, you know what this means? Where did you learn it from? Are you ever going to repeat it? Promise me you'll never say it again. Or the second thing I can do is ignore it completely and not give it the attention. If I do the first thing, the kid knows that, this swear word is like a magic word. I get all the attention I want. And then it's going to keep repeating. Similarly, any negative emotion, if I keep telling myself I don't want to feel anxious, I don't want to feel sad, I'm already feeling anxious in doing that. So accepting all emotions and not trying to push or pull them away. If they are unhealthy, I try to change them towards healthy. That we'll get to later, but accepting all emotions the way they are. Now, we believe that over the years, we develop specific reactions. So I know that when I'm angry, I might lash out. I might become sarcastic. I might be passively aggressive. I might withdraw completely, or I might not do anything at all. All of which are unhealthy. because we're not expressing what we truly feel here. So, and we've developed these habits. So when I'm angry, this is what I do. When I'm upset, I go to sleep or I text a friend. But these habits were not given to us by nature. They're not God gifted. We've learned them over the years. So if you've learned to behave in a particular way, you can unlearn it too. And this power you get only through mindfulness. How we're going to get there? In this time of Corona and the current uncertainty, there is a level of stress which is and you know what to do about it. So if I lose my mobile, I get stuck in traffic, or I burn my food, I know what to do to get out of it. But if I am faced with uncertainty, what will happen in 4 months? What will happen in 6 months? What is going to happen to the world, to my life, and to my city? I'm going to create a lot of uncertainty and a lot of stress that I cannot deal with. And this is the major reason why the current scenario is acting as such a big stress. To the extent that we've had a lot of patients who are stuck in quarantine walls, who have never had anxiety but are getting panic attacks, who've been anxiety patients off medications and are falling ill again. In fact, 3 of my patients were in buildings. So here in Mumbai, wherever there is a patient, the building gets sealed. So there's no one entering in or out of the building. Every time that happens, there is one person in the building who gets a panic attack every time the ambulance comes. Because what if it's my house? There's one more patient now. And that is adding to everyone's anxiety over and over again. Now the thing is, perspective plays a very important role here. We know that we're helpless, the situation we're in. That's not going to change. But if I resign to helplessness, or I choose to live the way I'm living right now. Simple example, if I take a 2-day holiday, it's a vacation. But if I'm made to sit for 2 days at home, it is a punishment. It's only about perspective. I have the same 24 hours. But the perspective makes a huge difference here. So in this current situation, with this uncertainty, instead of resigning to the fact that I'm so helpless here, if I tell myself that I've chosen this, the edge or the stress that is associated with this current time will be much, much, much lesser. Now coming to mindfulness, since the ground is set on why it is important for us. Mindfulness is about moment-to-moment awareness. So being aware of your body sensations and being aware of your thoughts at all given points of time, to understand how my body changes and how I'm reacting to different thoughts. There are 60,000 thoughts in a day. You won't remember more than 3 or 4 different thoughts that happened yesterday. You will not remember more than 1 or 2 of what happened last week or in the last month. Why? We remember only those thoughts on which we actively elaborate. Like before this session, all the things that were in your mind, you may not remember. So if I have to give you an example, suppose I travel a lot of cars and there is a lot of signals I stop on, but I don't remember all of it. I will remember only if I have to witness an accident or if I have to see a rash driver, because I think to myself that, oh, he's such an idiot, or this should have been different, oh, I feel so sorry for him. Till you don't actively elaborate, you don't remember it. It doesn't become an emotional memory. So thoughts are either about sensations. So I feel like itching, I feel hungry, I feel hot, I feel cold. I have thoughts about sensations. I have thoughts about intention. So I intend to do something in the coming week, in the coming day, or right now. So my thoughts will be about intentions. Or I could have an impulse. I just want to do something without thinking. It will be wrong, but I just want to do it. Or I could have thoughts about feelings. So I feel anxious or sad or angry, and my thoughts could be colored by that. Or it could be about an image. So I have an image of the last time I went out for dinner, or that beautiful lake I sat by, or what is going to happen. I'm going to meet someone in 2 months. So I could have an image of that. Or I could have random thoughts. At any given point of time, you're reacting to one of these thoughts. If I have to give you a simple example, suppose I have an itch in my leg. So the first sensation goes from my leg to my head saying it's itching there. The second one goes from my head to my hand, scratch. If I don't scratch, the sensation will keep coming that it's itching, it's itching, it's itching. And then after some time, it will just go away. Like if I'm having a pain in my leg and it's really hurting me and I'm talking about it all morning to all my friends, it's really hurting. And a friend of mine calls and I sit talking to her for 1 hour. So without even realizing the pain. So that doesn't mean the pain is gone. It just means the suffering is gone. So along with every negative stress that I feel, there is a suffering attached to it. And suffering comes from my thought processes. So if I'm aware of what I am thinking, so if I have pain in my leg, I will be like, this always happens to me. I have to experience this pain. I don't know when it will get better. I've already taken the tablet. This causes my suffering. The uncertainty and the fear that I associated with it. If I sit to meditate and I hear a sound, a dog barking outside or some child crying. So actually it's just the sound of the child crying or the dog barking. But I'm going to associate with it, it's irritating me. It's meant to distract me. And that troubles me even more. So sounds are sensations, but I attach meaning to it and then that gives me suffering. So this is what mindfulness breaks down for us. Like if I'm going to snap at somebody, if I'm going to get angry, before I verbally say something, my body undergoes a lot of changes. So when I'm angry, I'll be breathing faster. I'll feel a heaviness in my chest. I'll feel tenseness in my muscles. I feel my heart pounding, and then I say something back because the thought processes that run through they bring about these changes in my body, and I don't even notice it. I'm just reacting, and then I'm not aware of what I do after that because it again goes on automatic pilot. So mindfulness involves formal and informal training to help us break down our lives so that we can see it the way it is, the thoughts the way they are, the emotions the way they are, the sensations the way they are, and we choose to respond. And this is taught through meditation. Meditation and mindfulness are very different. Meditation, the aim or purpose of meditation is to reach a higher level of a higher being, to transcend above everything else. Mindfulness is about enriching the experience, nourishing the experience. Mindfulness comes from Buddhist philosophy, but the current form of mindfulness that we practice is free of any religious influence, and it is used entirely to help people cope, not only as a form of lifestyle, not only as a supporting system, but also as in psychiatric disorders. And we found it to be very useful in psychiatric disorders, which I'm going to come to later. So mindfulness involves four very important cardinal factors. The first one is impermanence. So everything that I think, so we all had different plans for May. That I thought I'm going to do this in May, I'm going to do this in April, but none of it is coming true. So it was a thought, they weren't facts. Or most of the things that we think about throughout the day, even during this lecture, you will notice that your thoughts continuously keep changing from one topic to the second to the third. If you don't pull and push it, if you don't actively elaborate on it, it will keep changing. Change is the only constant. So the first most important point that we understand in mindfulness is impermanence. Everything is impermanent, including your body sensations and your thoughts at all given points of time. The second thing is beginner's mind. So right now, most of the things that we see every day in our life are things that we already have seen before or know what it is for. So there is no element of novelty left. Whereas for a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, everything is new. So there is a sense of curiosity, there is a sense of understanding different things, seeing it, touching it, feeling it. and we live with this prejudice of what things are and how they are supposed to function and what they're supposed to do at all given points of time. Beginner's mind is letting go of the prejudice and living with no judgment. No judgment about self, no judgment about other people. Now, it takes some time to get there, but we can begin with small experiences. Like if I'm eating a meal, if I decide not to judge how this experience is going to be, or whether I'm going to like the taste or not, or will it be like if I go to a restaurant, okay, a restaurant which I have been to before, and I order in food. When I'm eating the food, I'm thinking the last time he had cooked this better. Next time, no, I'll sit in that place, come with that other friend and order the same thing. So I'm not enjoying this meal with this friend. I'm constantly going back and forth into what it was last time and how I'm going to make it the next time without enjoying this food the way it is being made or this preparation the way it is made. This is called beginner's mind, and we can do it with little tasks until it becomes a part of who you are. This is beginner's mind. The third thing is compassion, and compassion begins with self. Am I audible to everybody?
Is everybody okay with the sound?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, the third thing is compassion. So we talk about compassion towards self first. I can't love someone else if I don't love myself. If I keep looking for validation from someone else, it is impossible for me to love myself. So a lot of times, if I have pain or aches in my body, if I have a backache, or if I have a headache, knowingly, unknowingly, I develop a lot of negativity towards that part of my body. That this headache is the biggest problem, or this back has just ruined my life, or if only I didn't have so much fat on my thighs, that would be so much better. So I start developing this negative attitude towards my own body or towards thought that how could I think of such a thing? Why did I think of this thing? I feel so guilty about certain thoughts I have. So mindfulness asks us to be compassionate. Matlab, there is something called kindfulness meditation where you first begin with loving yourself, then the people around you, and then the world. So accepting things the way they are. So if I have to be non-judgmental and be with a beginner's mind with everything in the world, with other people and experiences in the world, I have to do it to myself as well. There's another thing called non-striving. Non-striving is when people get into the habit of mindfulness, they struggle a lot. I want to become mindful as soon as possible. I want to really experience this mindfully the way I'm supposed to, and I want to reach all the points of mindfulness as fast as possible. So, mindfulness, what mindfulness is to me, may not be for you because this form of learning is experiential. In the sense, I cannot pre-decide for anyone how the experience is going to be and how they are going to what they're going to realize for themselves. So non-striving is very important because there is no goal or purpose or point where you're supposed to reach with mindfulness, but just enjoy it the way it is. There is a story, a very famous story related to mindfulness, where there is this river, okay, and the river flows from between the mountains and valleys, and it starts noticing that it has this reflection of the cloud in it, and the river tries to catch hold of the cloud with little progress or little success, because every time it tries to reach the cloud changes shape, or it becomes another cloud, or it moves on, and the river keeps struggling throughout the journey to get there. And it gets very upset because every time it joins the ocean, it realizes that it has failed and it has not succeeded in reaching out to the clouds, and gets upset every time. Till one day, there are rains. There are rains, the clouds burst, and there is rain. And that's when the river realizes that I am the clouds. So the water evaporates from the river to become the cloud and it comes back as the rain. So in the process of striving to reach or find something, it doesn't realize that it is already it. You are complete the way you are. You don't have to become or change yourself to be someone else. This is non-striving. So mindfulness works on impermanence, compassion, beginner's mind, non-judgmental view, and non-striving. These four things come together. There's also an example of this monk who there are two monks and they were to cross a stream, and they were very habitual to crossing the stream. It was part of their everyday journey. And one day they saw this girl. She was standing there and she was struggling to enter the stream because she's very afraid how deep it will be and whether she drowns or whether she'll make it to the other side. And she kept entering into the stream a little bit and then running back running back to the shore. So one of the monks saw her that, do you want me to help you? So she agreed. So the monk lifted her. Yeah, the monk lifted her up and crossed the stream. And he dropped her there. She said thank you, and both the monks went their way. A little ahead, the second monk. Yeah, is the audio not clear? One second. Should I hold it? Is it better?
Yes, if you hold it, it's better. Yes. Thank you. Sanskriti, check your internet.
Okay.
Internet is having
Okay.
a problem. Yes. The picture is very, very clear.
Yeah. Do you want me to slow down also? Is it going too fast?
No, it's better. Fine.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So the second monk asked the first monk that, do you think it was appropriate? Like, we're monks and you just picked up the girl, and don't you think it's inappropriate for you to do that? And the first monk said that, I left the girl there at the edge of the bank or the bank of the stream, but you're still carrying it in your head. So you're at bigger fault here. So this example tells us that there are a lot of things which are going to be within our control. There are a lot of things which are going to be outside our control. But what we cling on to and what we hold on to is what causes bigger trouble. So a lot of people ask me that, I'm very worried of how things are going to be and everything's going to be a mess. And what if I get corona, or what if I don't have a job, and what will happen after 3-4 months? And I tell them that suppose things are fine. Okay, suppose things don't go the way you expected them to. So you wasted all this time thinking about it. And no, I'm fine. I'll hold it. So yeah, so if things go fine, if things are really good, you wasted all this time thinking about it. And if things go bad, is there anything you can do about it now? If there's something that I can do about it now, I go ahead and do it. If there's nothing I can do about it and it is entirely out of my control, is thinking about it going to make it better? And if things are fine, then I wasted all this time. So it helps us understand that it's very important to understand at this inattention or daydreaming or time that we waste, which is absolutely futile. So we're going to do one exercise of mindfulness now. Okay, it is called breath-based mindfulness, and hopefully we'll be able to apply some of the things that I taught you right now. Okay, and if possible, I'd like to share a video. I don't know if the audio will be possible, but first we'll do an exercise and then the video. Is that okay?
So a request, all of you could keep your videos on and keep your audios at mute so that she can see you guys doing the activity. Thank you. So you can keep your videos on and keep your You're self-muted.
Audio muted.
I really, really appreciate that.
Okay. So everyone's comfortable the way they are. Find a comfortable posture for yourself where you can sit for at least 3 to 4 minutes. Yeah. Ready? Fine. Close your eyes, everybody. Close your eyes. Continue a normal pace of breathing. Be aware of every sensation in your environment right now. You hear the sound of my voice, the temperature in the room, any other sounds that you hear, the sensation of clothes on your body, the way your hands and legs are placed. Be aware of all the distractions. Be aware of the thoughts in your head. Notice it, whether it's an intention, sensation, a feeling. Now bring your attention, guide it gently towards your breathing. Notice how the air enters through your nose. You can feel it near your nose. The movement of your chest and abdomen. Let your breath be the anchor. Let your breath be the anchor holding you together. The sensations in your body and your breath. Now guide all your attention to your breathing. Every time your mind gets distracted, gently invite it back to your breathing. Be aware that you're distracted and come back to your breathing. Be aware of the movements in your entire body. If you feel your breath anywhere else, in your rib cage, in your back, in your upper abdomen, bring it to your attention. Rub your hands together. Place them on your face. And slowly open your eyes. Anyone would like to share their experience?
Please raise your hands on the Zoom so that
Yeah,
I
Nahid.
can unmute you.
Can I
Raise your
speak?
hand on the Zoom so that I can unmute you.
Can I speak?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so it was really very mindful meditation. I realized I could I could be
Mm-hmm.
with my breath. I could be with all the sensation. I could be really uh, aware of everything happening around me in every small little
Mm-hmm.
way to the biggest distractions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Roop. Yeah. Anyone else?
Hi, Shahina here.
Go ahead.
Yes,
So
Shaina.
I'm the one who's never able to meditate. So I always get distracted and I have
Okay.
thoughts in double speed, what I normally have. But during this meditation,
Okay.
when you instructed that even if there is distraction, acknowledge and you can come back
Hmm.
and start focusing again. That was helpful,
Yeah.
so that I was not wandering with that distraction. Yes, I acknowledged and I was
Okay.
back to the instructions and was able to follow it.
Wonderful.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anybody else would
Yeah.
like to
Anyone else?
just unmute yourself and share?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I felt oxygen was flowing throughout my body.
Okay.
Every
Okay. Very
every
nice.
every part of my body. That was the only
Good. Good to know.
experience I
Thank you.
had.
Did anyone experience impermanence in the sense how much ever you try, your experience is continuously changing? Matlab, at one time you're thinking about your thoughts, and even your thoughts are changing from one to the other. Then you're focusing on your breath, and you're thinking about that. Did you experience impermanence?
Yes, a lot.
Actually, little bit of it, yes. I was getting more aware of
Hmm.
the sounds around in the surrounding. I mean, I could even hear the dogs barking down on the street. It was
Quite a
that.
bit of people have
Okay.
said yes.
So
Okay.
yes, that was there. But there was
Hmm.
a particular time where I felt as if I think I dozed off also. It was that.
Okay, good.
It was like that for me.
Relaxing.
Yeah, very
Okay,
much.
fine. Yeah. Anyone else felt impermanence?
Yes, I'm Dr. Manorama here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Manorama, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
initially I could focus on all the sounds when you instructed, and later
Mm-hmm.
the sounds they vanished actually. I
Okay.
concentrate on my breath. I was aware of the room where I am
Mm-hmm.
sitting, but there was continuous sound which is coming from outside. My mind was wandering to that sound because that was on a shriller note than the other sounds in that
Okay.
room. So
Okay.
that
Okay.
was my mind continuously going there when I tried to focus on my breath.
But you were able to bring it back
So
every time, bring it back to your breath.
yes, yes. Every time I could bring it back, but it was going there.
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough.
So that
That does happen with a lot of people. But over time,
okay.
you are able to focus for longer and longer periods of time. Over here, in mindfulness, the purpose is not to make you blank, or the purpose is not so that you're able to focus on your sensations more, but focus is on awareness. That at least you were aware कि मैं distract हो रही हूँ, and you came back. This awareness, or else you could have just gone there and been with those shrill sounds, but you were able to come back. So awareness was there, so the purpose is achieved. The second thing is that other than impermanence, we also felt a lot of sensations in our body which we didn't usually you're not aware of how your body is moving when you're breathing, or how your clothes are feeling on your body, or what is the temperature in the room. These things we don't sit and notice at different points of time. So you were able to experience this as well, more aware of your body sensation.
Yes, initially I could gather all
Okay.
the information, whatever you were instructing.
Hmm.
Where are my hands and feet, the position and
Yeah.
everything. And
Yeah.
slightest sounds in the room, but later I could concentrate on my breath and the sound which was
Hmm.
coming from
Okay.
outside. After that, there was
Okay.
no awareness about rest of the things.
Okay. Fine. So this exercise basically is to help us train our attention, train our awareness. Because if you can do it in the peace and comfort of your home, you whenever you have an emotionally charged situation, whenever you face a stressful situation, we call it the pause meditation. This is the pause meditation. So before you react, before you respond, or before you do something you may or may not repent later, take a pause so that you're not responding to all the overgeneralizations that you're living with, all the cognitive distortions कि ये मेरे साथ ही होता है, or yeah, this person always does this, or this happens to me on purpose. So many people are there, but such things have to happen to me. We live with these distortions. So instead of acting out on all the different experiences I've had, I am able to act at this experience only by taking a pause. Second thing is, one, it gives us a pause. Secondly, we can train our attention. Third, we can experience impermanence in its purest form. And fourth is being more aware of your body sensations. So if I tell you when you're angry, notice your body sensation, you'll be like, not possible. I can't do it. I'm angry, I've said, I've done, it's over, I'm crying, where I'll notice my body sensation. But if you train yourself now onwards, or if you start noticing when did I get upset in today's day, it could be something very trivial, like I put extra salt in the food, or my kid said something. So it may not last for more than half an hour or 15 minutes. But if I start noticing in those moments, what are the thoughts in my head? What am I reacting to? And how my body is changing as a response to these situations, I can train myself to be more aware even in situations that are actually demand a lot of my emotions. There is a study related to earlier before 2010, there were barely any studies done on mindfulness. But now there are ample amount of studies. There is one study which says that if you meditate for 20 minutes every day for 8 weeks, it causes neuroplasticity changes. Now, neuroplasticity is basically uh, our brain has neurons, billions and billions of neurons, and they're continuously, uh, being modified and getting degenerated and regenerated, and all of that is happening at all given points of time. And neuroplasticity is, and the attention that I'm born with, the impulsivity that I'm born with, I can train it to improve my attention focus and to reduce my impulsivity. And this is possible through mindfulness exercise. It is a research study. You can look up on Google Scholar on how this has helped a lot of people improve their attention focus and reduce impulsive actions. Impulsive actions, in simple words, is thinking after doing. So I did something, I said something, and I'm thinking after it. Also, it helps those people who think too much and don't react at all. So I spend so much of my time in making the perfect decision that the time is already past. So I'm aware that I'm overthinking, I'm over intellectualizing this situation. I should probably just think that there is no perfect solution and go ahead with what I want to. So this makes a difference in our lifestyle. One thing that has helped me personally through mindfulness is, like I said in the beginning, that I've had a lot of trouble with food. I've had tremendous amount of trouble with food in the sense I was never able to lose weight for almost 7, 8 years throughout my medical school. MBBS, MD, I was a fat kid, and it wouldn't work. I mean, I would diet for 3 days and dream about food on the fourth day. If I know I'm going to get a good meal in the evening, my entire day will be good. So, and I've been raised with foodie parents and my cousins. We could talk hours about food. And whenever I'm upset, I eat food. Whenever I think I'm going to diet and I sit with something, an ice cream or a chocolate, and I'd be like, I'm going to diet tomorrow. or at least I deserve this. I had such a heavy day. So weight loss was a very big problem. That's when I started something called mindful eating. Now, what mindful eating basically does is most people mistake it for slow eating. Doesn't work. Mindful eating is, suppose if I have to eat a grape or a biscuit. So normally, how do I eat a biscuit? I take two, I put it in my mouth, and I'm talking, I'm doing something. It's over. I realize the packet's already done. Mindful eating is paying attention. So every day, I decided to eat one meal mindfully. So suppose I'm eating a grape or a biscuit. So I take the biscuit in my hand. I see the different colors and the textures and how it feels on my hand and how it smells, although I've had it so many times. And then I take a small bite and I close my eyes and I notice how the particles become soggy, how it feels on my tongue, how my tongue moves, how the saliva is released, how the food particles move about in my mouth, and how I finally swallow it. When it's still in my mouth, I can smell it. And then I take little by little bites and I started eating mindfully. There's another practice that this biscuit is in my hand today. But for this biscuit to reach my hand today, uh, there are so many people involved. So the ingredients were probably uh, harvested from a farm far far away. So there was the farmer, the sun, the soil, the transport, the grocery store, my mom, and everyone that was involved. The packaging until it reached my plate today. So this biscuit is not just the biscuit; it has all those people, all those resources. It has the sun and the moon and the water and the sweat of so many people there. So I notice all of it and the physical sensations of that biscuit and I eat it. I realized two, three things while doing that. Number one is I would reach satiety earlier. So without cutting out things from my life, I was able to eat lesser quantity. The moderation that I was struggling with, that I was able to achieve. Secondly, I realized what I like eating. I like eating salty things, I like eating crispy things, and I like eating spicy things. These are the things I like. So when I would eat wafers or chips, I would put like 4 5 in my mouth, and then it would all turn soggy together. And as soon as it's soggy, it has lost its meaning. I take another five and put them in my mouth. I started eating one at a time and noticing it as I chew it and the crispiness goes away and the sogginess increases and how I swallow it after that. Similarly, all the food items from one meal I went to all meals. I said I'll eat everything, but I will eat it mindfully. I'm not going to rush through the meal. And I started eating mindfully. The quantity of the food went down drastically. And another thing that would happen to me was most of the times I would get up and after a meal, because I'm too full, I can't eat anymore. But I'm not happy. I don't feel satiated. I just feel like I need some more. And so many times I eat because it's on my plate. I eat because uh, this is how much I always eat. I eat because I'm not satiated. My stomach is full, but I feel I like it so much. I should eat some more, and I overeat it. So then when I started noticing my body sensations as well while eating, I realized that when I feel full, I stop. Not because it's on my plate, not because I'm supposed to eat that much. I like it. I stop because I'm full. So this would happen very typically that on days I would eat chips or a candy bar. I would skip meals that, Arey, I've had unhealthy food today. I cannot afford to just eat dinner also after this. And then I would have struggle sleeping because I would still be hypoglycemic and my energy needs were not met, and I keep struggling with food and sleep and get more restless, and in the bargain get up and eat another candy bar because I needed that energy. So all these vicious cycles started breaking down. So I started noticing that am I hungry? If I'm hungry right now, what do I actually crave? My brain will always tell me sugar because there's a scientific reason behind it. That whenever I'm going through a stressful period, a physical stress or a mental stress, there is something called cortisol which is released in my body. What the cortisol does is that it 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 breaks down the sugar that is available to make energy available for me to tide over the stress. And to break down the sugar, we have a craving for eating sugar or glucose. So people who are stressed are obviously going to crave sugary stuff. So what would happen? The stress would make me crave sugary things, and then I would eat more. So that vicious cycle was not working out for me. So I managed to lose a lot of weight, more than 10 kilos of weight, with just mindful eating. I am not I am not cutting out anything from my diet. No sweet cutout, no flour cutout, nothing. Just everything, but I will eat mindfully. I end up eating very small quantities, and I listen to my body. I need energy, or I need sugar, or I need proteins, depending on what my body needs at that time. I follow it because I've realized that whenever I would follow a diet, a specific diet given by a dietitian, I just wear off in 3 4 days because I'm not aware of emotions, I'm not aware of body sensations. So this is how mindful eating has helped me in my personal life. There's another thing that we should understand is mindfulness. Although this is actually a very short amount of time to help you practice it, but if I have to give you something that you can actually do, that would be number one, start introducing a breath space mindfulness. So the breath space that we just did, try doing it at least 2 3 times in a day. It barely takes 3 minutes to do. Number one, so include that breath space in your life. Try eating at least one meal a day mindfully. Okay. And the third thing is at the end of each day, just go back to all the times where you were emotionally upset in any form. It could be something as simple as not getting the cab, or putting extra salt in the food, or running late for somewhere, and you were upset even for the smallest time. And try to go back and realize that did you notice what thoughts you were having and what body sensations you were having. And once you are doing it at the end of the day, try doing it in your everyday life. Like, I am feeling upset now and going through. Or right now, when you're sitting and listening to me, what are the sensations in your body? What are
No.
the thoughts? Tell me. Someone saying something?
Sushila, can you please mute yourself? Yeah, muted her.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you can start noticing it whenever you're upset. Where is it coming from? Where is the thought process coming from? And whether I'm living with a prejudice. So let go the prejudice and try to experience at least one thing without a bias in your life. Matlab, every day you decide that, okay, today I'm going to take a mindful bath. So I know how the water feels. I know how the soap feels, but let me experience it as if it's the first bath I'm ever taking. As if I'm from Mars and I don't know how to bathe at all. Or if I eat something, or if I talk to something, I'm going to listen to. If I listen to music, it works very well with listening to music. So if I'm listening to music, I listen to every tone. I try to realize how many instruments are playing and how it makes me feel. These are informal meditation practices. In today's world, it's difficult to tell people that you meditate for 20 minutes in a day. No one's going to do it. So if these little things, and you actually see the benefit right after you're done, you don't have to wait for 10, 15, 20 years to see a difference. You finish it 3 minutes later, you feel the difference. And contrary to popular belief, meditation is not about clearing your mind or creating a blank space or staring at a candle or chanting something. It's every experience that you have. You focus on it, it becomes meditation. As a lifestyle, it really helps. People who are going through mild anxiety, mild depression, or as an adjunct to other therapies, mindfulness really helps. It cannot be used as a first line treatment for a psychiatric disorder, but we've used it with a lot of psychiatric patients. So, uh, if you all are aware, a lot of people suffer from anxiety. So anxiety basically is people who have generalized anxiety. Like this current time has triggered a lot of anxiety amongst people. There's generalized anxiety and there's panic. So what happens typically in panic is your suffering to physical sensations increases. So you have shortness of breath, or heaviness in chest, or you have tremendous palpitations, and there is one predominant thought that I am going to die. Something bad is going to happen. This comprises a panic attack. In that moment, if you tell the person be mindful, you're going to get a slap across your face. But at a later date, if they are trained in mindfulness, and when a panic happens again, you can be aware of the thought processes you're having. That how these physical symptoms, although I know is a panic attack, are getting catastrophized in my brain. That how I am linking that thing to death, and the physical sensations go on elevating with my thought process. Like if I have a tremor in my hand and I keep thinking, oh my god, it's trembling, what if it's something else? And what if it's a neurological problem, and what if it's cancer or something else? When I'm thinking of these negative thoughts, I will start getting anxiety tremors. So I am worsening the panic attack by thinking these catastrophizing thoughts. So it can terminate faster if you apply mindfulness there. Or with generalized anxiety, or with people who have OCD. So OCD typically people, if I talk about washing hands, so some patients are like, I have this thought in my head that my hands are not clean and I need to wash them. And if I don't wash, I feel this tremendous anxiety. I have to do it. And once I do it, I feel better. And this cycle keeps repeating itself. So we ask people to work on two things. Number one is the discomfort that you feel when you don't wash your hand. That discomfort is impermanent. If you dwell on it, or if you keep reinforcing the fact that I just can't take it, I will not be able to bear it, it will go on increasing. But if I come to terms with the fact that this is impermanent, let me dwell in this, let me not act on it, let me not act on the compulsion, and be in this discomfort, it becomes impermanent, and you're able to stay in it a moment longer till it dissipates. Also, people develop a lot of hatred towards their own thoughts, that I'm tired of my thoughts, I'm tired of being a slave to my thoughts. Here, compassion meditation helps. That be kind to yourself. They are thoughts, they are not you. You are not causing these thoughts. So it has found a lot of applications in psychiatric disorders as well. There is another thing which people complain about mindfulness these days, and that is that it has been put into small packages of doable tasks. Like I told you, mindfulness eating or mindfulness walking or talking, and people are exploiting the true essence of mindfulness by without understanding it, but just taking the deliverables and doing it. So instead of just doing it and then learning about its concepts, ideal way would be to learn about the concepts and then do. So that is one criticism which it faces, and that's why it's called Mac mindfulness. Like McDonald's, you made it easy to eat, easy deliverables are available. There is one video that I would like to share. Will it be possible? I can share screen, right? I think
Yes,
audio
can
won't
share
be
the
there,
screen.
right?
Absolutely.
Or I can send it to someone. So,
So you just have
Anuj, I can send it to you.
yeah, you can send.
I would suggest you try playing. If it plays, great. If not, we can send.
Just
Okay.
go on the
I
share
think the
button.
audio will come. The video might be a problem. I'll just...
Generally, it's not a problem at all. So just go on the share button. We'll be able to see. Yes, we are able to see your screen. And now just go into whatever you need to go into, where your
Yeah.
file. Yes.
You can hear though? I don't know. It's okay if you just watch also, it's fine.
No, we're not able to hear, but we're able to see.
It's okay, it's okay. There are no dialogue anymore. Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. We're able to see it.
Yeah, so does anyone want to share what they understand out of the video?
So right when you are reacting to that.
Can I share?
Yes, please go ahead, Panorama.
Yeah. The video, I could gather that whatever you feel inside, you can imagine it outside.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's one way of looking at it.
Am I audible?
I
Yeah,
would
yeah,
say,
you're audible but slightly unclear.
Okay. Is it better now?
Tell me.
So what I learned from the video is like when he was reacting to
Hmm.
distraction he was causing, he was getting furious, and that
Hmm.
as you just discussed, that anxiety it keeps multiplying, and out of one bee he was experiencing as if there are thousands of bees now. But once he started internalizing his thoughts
Hmm.
and controlling it, he took himself in a different place altogether where there was flowers, snowfalls, and he was in a much better state.
Correct. Okay. Okay. That's a good interpretation. Anyone else wants to try?
Anya, you wanted to
Yes,
say something?
yes. I would like to say something.
Just 1 minute, Anya.
Okay.
here. Oh,
Anya
sorry.
wanted to just unmute. She had already unmuted, and then we'll come back to you. Anya, could you say what you need to say? Umaji will come back to you in a minute.
For me, it was like don't get distracted in what you're doing and
Okay.
try to focus on what you want to do and not
Mm-hmm.
let other outside influence.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Anything else? Uma was saying something.
Yes. I want to say that I feel that if you are peace within, then you are
Hmm.
peaceful outside also.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Anyone else?
So I felt what you resist persists is what I felt with this picture.
No,
Newton,
I didn't get you. I didn't get you. Can you
what
repeat?
we resist persists in our life.
Correct. Correct. Very nice. Very nice. Anyone else?
Newton, go ahead.
Yes, what I feel is all the distractions outside are actually
Hmm.
lying within you, and only they disappear out and appear outside.
Correct. Perfect. Perfect. Anyone else? We're done?
Anybody else would like to share? Okay, I think
Okay. So there is no right or wrong interpretation because everyone, I think I've shown this video to hundreds of people, and every time people have a new perspective to it. So there is no right or wrong way of seeing or perceiving it. It's to each his own, like the way you experience it. But we say that the flies represent our thoughts. If you try to push one away, there'll be another one. If you try to push one negative emotion away, there'll be four others, there'll be five others. But if you learn to live with those thoughts and be aware of them, the way they are happening, it can be a very, very peaceful time. So learn to dwell with the thoughts. Dwell with the thoughts the way they are. If they're ugly, they're bad, they're sad, they're upsetting, they're depressing, stay with your thoughts at all points of time. And this is the message we get. You have interpreted it in this way now. You watch it again after 6 months, you will have a different interpretation of it. It teaches you something each time. Okay, so I think we're almost 1.5 hours done. So if there are, this is the basic that I would want to tell you about mindfulness, as compact as I could have made it for you. And if you people want links or reading material, I could provide, which you can go through and get some guided information on that.
that
And if there are any questions, you all can ask.
Abhay is there. He's
Next.
raised his hand up. Abhay, could you unmute your? I'm unmuting you. Just go ahead and ask the question. Yeah, just go ahead and ask the question. Abhay, I'm unable to unmute you. Just unmute yourself and ask the question. Abhay,
I didn't have any question. I was just it must be by an accident.
Okay, ठीक है, not a
Okay.
problem.
Yeah. Anyone else would like to
So what
ask
we'll do is right now I'll go call each one's name, and whoever wants to ask questions can then unmute themselves. And it's
Fine.
not just about asking questions. They could share what they felt. They could give you a feedback. They could contribute to the whole thing. They could ask you a question. So let's go with Anya first. So Anya, you have anything to share, ask, or contribute? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think in today's world, it's especially with the coronavirus, it's very important to be in the now and not get distracted, you know, like with too many thoughts. We are bombarded with information. You don't know which one is correct anymore and which one is correct. And I mean, I live in Germany, and there's so many different information we get. Every state does something different. And I think to stay centered and to be for yourself, be mindful of your thoughts, of what you're doing, and be happy with the moment, you know, and also be happy and grateful that we're here and I've been not attacked with coronavirus, and you know, and I think, yeah, that's all I have to say. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was brilliant, that we need to stay focused and not get disturbed by so many informations that are coming in.
Yes.
Majid, would you like to share something, say something? I'm unmuting you. आप unmute करिए अपने आप को. हाँ जी.
Yeah, thank you for the beautiful way you have kept everything. It was simple and we could understand everything what you were saying. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Aarti, would you like to share something, ask a question?
I don't have any questions. I just want to give a feedback that I love each and every meditation. And even the video that you showed, I quite resonated with what Shaina was saying, that it's like the chaos that we create in our minds. You know, we react to one thing and then it's a chain of reactions that we keep giving to things that they are not important, and how mindful we have to be. And I also like what you shared about how we can do a mindful eating, because we don't do actually mindful eating. We're so occupied and so fast running in everything that we don't sit down, even have a meal silently, and you know, with that mindfulness that we need to do. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aarti.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Harsha. Harsha, you have anything to say?
Hi.
Hi.
So it was a very mindful session, I would say, and you put light on very small things which really helped me a lot, because most of the things you know said about do happen to me very often, like the OCD. I have got OCD about cleanliness and how to control that, and anxiety pangs which I do get quite often, and then also about anger, just to give a purpose when you are really angry. In fact, the whole session was very, very informative, and I will definitely try and put into practice, because I've got so many you know, hints and ways to tackle this, and I'm sure I'll be a better person. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harsha.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kwesi, you have anything to share or say or ask?
Yes, so thank you very much for this wonderful sharing and also the meditations. And what I am very mindful about is what I'm reading, because you are what you read. And they are very mindful what I choose, what I read. So that's because of what Anya just said, all the information what is now spreading everywhere. So you are what you read. So there I'm very, very mindful what I'm reading.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go to Palak. Palak, you have anything to share?
Yes, I have. First of all, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you so much for the session. I find it really useful. I just realized that we so underestimate the power of breathing. This so simple thing that can bring us back to ourselves, that bring us back to the present movement, right? And that makes me feel really resonated. It is a takeaway from me that I can practice it in every now and then. Thank you so much
Very
for
good.
that.
Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful, Palak. Sanskriti?
Hello, ma'am. It was a
Hi.
very good session. The basic thing I'm going to learn from this quarantine to slow down, because it feels so good while you are breathing, because we are running in such a speed that we even don't know what we are doing. We are engaging in something, not taking our mind everywhere. We are doing multitasking, but slowing down is something that you feel centered, and it's too good to feel. I'm going to learn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Abhay Kumar, you have something to share?
Yes.
Yes, go ahead, please.
I just want to thank you, Dr. Dave, for the fantastic session. What I was seeing was mindfulness. Actually, the way she was carrying the session, in a way that I realized that she has digested the mindfulness in herself. The way she was putting the things, the way she was instructing, and at a fantastic ease she was at, and it was really a beautiful way of displaying, demonstrating mindfulness, and she herself is a good it was never just a jargons and what we can say the theoretical things you were putting in front of us. You were actually demonstrating the mindfulness. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.
Gina, would you like to unmute and say something?
Thank you so much, Naren. It was really interesting. Just a quick question. You said, you should allow every thought to just be, whether it's good or bad or whatever. But
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. There is some disturbance.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my child crying. Um, I'm just asking if you said you should let every thought be, whether it's good, it's ugly, it's bad, anything. But if you then get into this panic anxiety mode, then should you not stop those thoughts?
No. No, you have to believe in the power of impermanence. If you stop it, you're still thinking about it. You're thinking, I don't want to feel this way. If you try to push it away, it's going to persist long. I think someone said, what you resist persists. If you try to resist it, it will persist even more. This is the biggest mistake we do. Whenever we get a negative thought, we want to avoid it. You want to push it under the rug. You don't want to feel that way. But one way or the other, it is coming back. Instead, you go towards it. You go towards it, experience it, and realize that it isn't as catastrophic as you made it in your head. And you live through it. If you push away, it is going to get stronger. So we give people a very typical example, of someone who draws a photo of a monster, okay, draws a photo of a monster on their and puts it up on their wall, okay, in the living room wall, and gets scared with it every day. Every day you get up feeling scared of, oh, there's a monster in my house, but you're the one who put it there. So the deal is that if I try to run away from it, if I try to push it away, it is going to become like the example I gave of the 2-year-old kid who uses swear word. So if I don't give it attention, it will come down in that situation. But when it comes to emotions and feelings, I have to let them be. Just be aware that I'm getting anxious. I am getting anxious. I'm aware of it, but I'm not going to try and push it away. So, like I said, when I say it, it may not seem very convincing because mindfulness is a way of experiential learning. When you do it, you find it to be very useful. I tell people simple things. You spent your entire life trying to push away panic and anxiety. Has it helped? So try this. Try this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I
Can you hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Dave. I have some internet issue actually. Trying to come
Okay,
in
okay.
video also.
Okay.
Really, really very nice session. The
Mm-hmm.
meditations were great and definitely making me realize how unmindful we are about so many things. And the thing that you suggested about mindful eating, I think we can really, really take that into consideration because we, as it is in lockdown, sitting at home and, be very careful of every thought also. And of course, eating is a very important thing and really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very big lesson. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Can I share? Can I share?
Yes, please, Dr. Nutan.
Yes. So it slightly changed my perception towards, uncertainty.
Okay.
So it's like when you said you should not, hold on to anything or any thought, it has to move on, right? It has to let go. So if it is so, then things are supposed to be changed, right? So there will be uncertainty, but you don't have to be anxious about it.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
aane wala jaane wala hai. So I'm like going to enjoy
Yeah.
that as well now.
True.
Thank you so much. That was a nice take for me from this session. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So one more thing we tell people is that things could go bad later. Okay, there could be an element of reality in that. But आज तो अच्छा है ना. आज तो कुछ नहीं हुआ ना. Then why ruin today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, living in the moment with just mindful, being
In the
kind.
moment.
Yes, that's what the thing is. Thank you so much.
Yes, living.
Hello, Dr. David.
Yeah,
Amrita
hi
this side.
Amrita.
I just want to know, maybe I have missed part of session where you have informed about the anger management, but I want to know that how do we react or respond mindfully? Like you are working normally and suddenly there is a situation where you get angry. And you know me, if you even if you acknowledge that you are getting angry, how does it help to how do we respond in that situation? I would say whether if you are feeling sad or if you are angry, how do we react mindfully on that situation?
Okay, so anger is always because of two reasons. One, I get something I don't want, or I don't get something I want. So the frustration that builds up causes anger. Experiencing anger is a normal emotion. You cannot say, I will not get angry now. Today onwards, I'm never going to get angry. That's an impossible thing to do. So we are going to experience anger. But here we talk about reacting and responding. So I react as a reflex. So this is how I do it. I do it and then I think later. Whereas responding, I pause. I think for a minute how I want to respond to this situation. What is my goal? Is my response taking me closer to my goal? So I typically give an example of my receptionist who doesn't turn up on time. So I could react by shouting at her, but the only message she will take home is that madam is angry. But if I respond to her, if I make her understand in simple words that what happened, how it upset me, and what she could do. If I express my emotions without criticizing, without blaming, and without trying to label her as anything, she is actually going to understand what made me upset, and I will achieve my goal of getting her on time. So this is an ideal way to respond. There are different ways of responding. You could snap, you could withdraw, you could be passively aggressive, you could be sarcastic. There are different ways one could respond to anger. But you must get that pause before you respond. And you can't say it happens at a reflex, because what you would do if you are angry with your mother, with your dog, with your child, and with your boss are all different. So we all have an inherent capacity to modulate the way we express anger. And if you can learn it, you can unlearn it also. So if you learn some maladaptive ways of expressing anger, you can take a pause and learn a different way of expressing. The way you get angry at your colleague or probably your mom is not the same way you will get angry at your boss. So we are capable of modulating our behavior.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome.
Wonderful. So are we saying here, Dr. Dave, that we are that probably our reactions are also conditioned to who and how we are reacting?
Yes, yes. So that is just an example to help us understand that we are capable of having control over it, because a lot of people say, I have no control over it. I just respond in the moment. So ऐसा नहीं है. You do have some control, but it happens so quickly that you are not even aware of it. So like I said, in that moment, there will be body sensation, there will be thought processes that you can bring to your awareness and respond better.
Wonderful. So let's go to the next person, Kavita.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Dave, it was a very informative session,
Yes.
And I really like the meditation part. And I must congratulate you. Your patients would be very lucky. Very sensitive doctor they must have found in you. And my query
Thank
is,
you very much.
this I could see a very sensitive person in you, and if a psychiatrist like you works on a patient, it would be really a boon for them. I want to know, this kind of an exercise, does it help in psychotic cases also? The schizophrenic, OCD, does it really help? Because in our
It
kind
doesn't help. It doesn't help with psychotic patients, because in fact we advise them not to meditate also, because an actively psychotic patient will when they sit down with their thoughts may have the delusional process and hallucinations become worse. So we ask them not to meditate. Once they are out of the psychotic process with the help of medications, and a lot of people suffer from post-psychotic depression. So they're out of, they don't feel hallucination, delusions anymore, but they have a sense of worthlessness. And when they develop insight into what had happened to me, they get even more depressed. So in that case, mindfulness will help. But an actively psychotic schizophrenic patient will not be advised to do meditation at least. Informal meditation practices, yes, but formal meditation, breath space or body scan, no.
But it helps in OCDs? Does it help
It helps in
OCD
OCD.
patients?
It helps in OCD.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
It helps.
Yeah. Wonderful. We have Divya, who's raised her hand.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, I think the lecture is more having a much better impression because you live the talk, ma'am. And what I would like to just add 2 more points. I mean, you mentioned everything about the judgmental and all, is kindness and curiosity. So I would like to cite a small example. I mean, I know you must be already knowing it, but just for everybody. Is suppose I am going down and I see my friend coming across towards me, and she just doesn't smile and just goes away. So I would be having that judgment kind of thing, so maybe she's heard something about me, that's why she didn't smile. And I would be, building castles and on layers on the, just too much, because the mind is like, it's just runs amok, So what I would say, two attributes and curiosity, I mean, I also have learned it somewhere. So kindness in the sense that I could just say that maybe, no, she's a good friend. She's been a good friend to me. So let me be kind. And curiosity is trying to find the reason why she didn't smile. Maybe she's had some grumpy day in the house or somebody has reprimanded her. So maybe because of these two adjectives, I would control my judgment towards her. So the other 4 points, I mean 4, 5 which you mentioned, I thought let me just add these two also. Kindness and curiosity.
So this is very true. Yeah, what you said is very true. There's one more thing that acts in this typical example that you mentioned, and that is my self-esteem. So if I am a person who has low self-esteem, I will look for such opportunities and watch the prophecy getting fulfilled, that people don't like me or I'm not good enough. That adds to it, my judgment towards myself. That also will play a role here. Otherwise, non-judgment and curiosity, absolutely true, but self-esteem. And we've seen a lot of people with low self-esteem. So when you have a low self-esteem and your relationship with yourself is not very positive, there are more opportunities for you to fall into such traps.
Thank you so much. Over to Binaifa. Binaifa, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so you've done so much for us, Dr. Dave, today, and it was a beautiful session. What I really loved about your session is that you're including mindfulness, which is so required, and simple things like which are present with us, like breathe well, sit down, relax, just be with yourself. Doable. It's practical, and that's a gift that you've given us. So we would like to go back and give you a small gift today of angels and cards. And Binaifa does it beautifully. Binaifa, go ahead. You can read for our speaker.
Thank you so much, Doctor. It was a wonderful session, and I really loved the mindful eating part. And I'm really going to start doing that because I feel it's so important. It's really important. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, there is a. Yeah, tell me.
No, tell me. I was just going to pick up cards for you. Please tell me.
Okay. No, I'm just saying if there is a link for the breath space mindfulness, if anybody wants, because a few of them have texted for articles. If you want, I can share it in the chat section.
Could you please do that? Thank you.
Yeah.
I could also put you into the whole group. I could add your number with your permission. So you could then share over there the links on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, that will be better. Yeah.
I will do that. I will do that. And if anybody needs to have a consult with you, they could do that too. So you practice your psychiatrist, so you will be able to help people. And I will be putting your number down in the main group where you could put all the links so they stay with everyone. We have about 135 people over there. So it will be great to have everyone benefit from it. Yes,
definitely.
Yeah. So I've picked up 2 angel cards for you. The first card is Angel Celeste, who is saying a happy move to a new home or place of employment is in the works. This movement will usher in positive new energy. So if you are looking for a house or a change somewhere, it is going to happen very soon. And the second card is Angel Mystique, who is saying keep charging ahead and don't take no for an answer. Expect miraculous solutions to appear.
Okay, good one.
Thank you.
That's really positive. Thank you very much, Binaifa.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we have right now, let's do for Harsha.
Harsha, any questions?
Harsha, any questions?
I think Harsha already spoke, no?
Yeah, she did. Okay, let's go for Sanskriti. Let's do the cards for her.
Sanskriti, any questions?
No, today no questions.
Okay. So for you, I have got one is try not to be influenced by others who are trying to pull you down emotionally. because there might be somebody in your life who will enter or has already entered, who will try and upset you a lot emotionally. So don't, just go down or bring down your mood because of that. And if you're working career-wise, it's showing a good time for you. It's showing somewhere where there is a period of growth right now for you, and it is going to improve. So just focus on that and let the emotional drawbacks not affect you over there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Let's go with Amita.
Amita, any questions?
Hi, Vinayaka.
Hi. Any questions?
Yes, I want to know that how long will it take for the situation in my life to get settled?
Okay. So you have the situation in your mind?
Yes.
Around 8 months.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, it will start improving from the 6th month, but eventually to settle and completely work in your favor, sort of 8 months.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Let's do for two more people. Let's do for two more people from Germany, for Anya and for Dr. Kwesi.
Anya, any questions?
I can't hear you, Anya. Unmute yourself.
I did. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Any question?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. So Anya, I picked up 2 cards for you. One tarot and one angel card. So the tarot says that try and be a little more grounded. Sometimes you tend to let your thoughts fly off the hook, and a lot of stuff maybe which is not possible you want in life. So just try and be a little more grounded emotionally. And the angel card that I got is of a career transition. So it's Archangel Chamuel, who is saying your life purpose is triggering a blessed career change. So if you are thinking of something, then this is the time you will do well in this.
Thank you.
Most welcome.
Wonderful. For Dr. Kwesi?
Yes. Dr. Kwesi, any questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Dr. Kwesi, hello. Any questions?
No, just open for everything, what comes up.
Okay. So 2 angel cards are picked up for you, Doctor. The first one is Archangel Michael, who is saying, I'm with you, giving you the courage to make life changes that will help you work on your divine life purpose. And the second card is Archangel Raphael, who is saying, give your cares and worries to us angels and allow us to take your burdens. So just be stress-free and enjoy yourself.
Shukran.
Thank you.
Nutan has asked for reading.
Okay. Nutan, any question?
I have a question regarding my husband, so I'll keep it in my mind.
Okay.
Let me guess what the question is. Let me not pull your leg right now. Does he love me? Does he love me not?
No, not that one now.
No. You can just pick up the rose and do that.
Okay. So, Nutan, for you, I have got that your husband will get somebody in his life who's going to help him on his career path.
Should have seen her face when you said he will get somebody in his life. Oh my God.
No,
that's true. You got it so right in that friction of movement.
You could have got killed but if you were anywhere close to her.
Yeah, she would have caught my throat, but no, it's for the good. So it could be you also. It could be you also where you could help him and push him as far as his career goes. So it's anyone. And tell me one thing: is he right now feeling too focused on his work, or absolutely not?
Your voice is breaking.
Is he too focused
on his work, or absolutely not?
He is feeling too
focused, like only work. Is he not?
Not at all.
Not at all. Okay.
I'm pushing him a lot.
Yeah. So exactly the cards that have come, that he's not focused, and maybe trying to run away from work, or just not able to handle what is coming to him. And there is going to be a person who's going to guide him and get him back on track for work. So which could be you. That is why I said that person could be you, who is going to bring him back on track and is going to be that solid support that he needs.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love you. You are amazing.
Thank
all
you.
the time.
Thank
Every
you.
single time. You are amazing.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Anu. Thank you.
Last card for the whole group, and then we say goodbye to Dr. Dave and to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dave.
Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. Thank you very much for having
Thank you so
me.
much. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I'm really
Wonderful audience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
So 2 cards for the group.
Yes.
The first card is all of us here are going to have a new beginning monetarily. So it's going to be slightly delayed. If you're expecting it to come tomorrow, it's going to happen day after tomorrow. But it is there. Each one of us have got a new beginning, whereas finances are concerned. So that is what the tarot is telling us. And the angel card I picked up is Angel Athena, who is saying it is safe for you to be powerful. You know how to be powerful in a loving way that benefits others as well as yourself. So basically, all of us should own our power and just show it lovingly to the world, where people don't feel overwhelmed by our presence. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There's a song that I'm putting up for you guys. And
Yes, so stop the recording before that, Anu.
yes, thank you.